Military veteran and former Congressman Allen West joins us. Colonel, so did the U.S. reveal too many details about this plan to retake Mosul?
Well, absolutely, and it's a pleasure to be with you, Kimberly. When you look at the history of military warfare, think about Operation Overlord and D-Day and the lengths by which we went to for a deception plan. I recall in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the deception plan we had that made Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi army focus off the shore of Kuwait City while we were deep in the desert. Only I have seen in the Vietnam War when the Viet Cong surprise attacked us during the Tet and the Tet offensive. So why would we tip our hand and say, hey, look, we're going to come sometime after the open enrollment of Obamacare, maybe right after tax season, but definitely before Ramadan. And we even disclosed the size and the type and the composition of the forces that were going to be used. We have totally lost the key element of surprise in divulging all of this information.
How do we rationalize this? What is the explanation? Because if you didn't know better, you'd think someone was playing for the other team by handing over our game plan on Super Bowl day.
Well, there are two things. Maybe the Obama administration is using this as some type of deception for a grander plan or strategy, which I really doubt. So I really believe that this defaults to a political decision by an administration that wants people to believe that it is doing something when actually they are not doing anything, and so they're going to divulge this plan. Just the same as we see nothing being done to help the Ukrainians against the onslaught of Russia, we're not seeing any action really be taken by this administration in the Iraq-Syrian theater of operations.
From a strategy trying to engage in counterterrorism here, we are giving away our upper hand by telegraphing constantly and consistently to our enemies and our adversaries our next move. And whether it's withdrawing troops, when we're going to get out, when we're going to deploy, we seem to be very transparent when it comes to military operations, but not other things.
No, you're absolutely right, and it defies all logic that you tell an enemy that you are going to leave on such a date and you're going to declare end of combat operations. And this is why I am vehemently against the Congress granting the authorization of military force to President Obama, because once again he has come out and said that we're just going to do this for 3 years. How does he know it's going to take 3 years? What if it takes 6 months? And furthermore, he has not really laid out a clear strategy. It was a regurgitation of what he said back in August, and we see how horrifically that strategy has failed to this point, because ISIS has gained in strength, and we know that they now have affiliations in about 11 to 12 different countries.
Well, that's the problem, and I think the president wanted to act like, yes, he is taking this seriously and asking for this specific use of military force and authorization. But as you well know, Colonel, the president has everything he needs within his power to be able to act decisively and definitively with respect to ISIS. As you point out, this just hamstrings by setting up a specific time frame, 3 years. Why would you do that, especially with another president coming in 2016?
Well, again, I think that you have a president that is reticent in dealing with this situation. He has been forced into, somewhat having to sheepishly admit that his strategy of complete withdrawal in Iraq has failed. He has created a vacuum. He has created an even worse vacuum in Libya as well, and they don't know what to do with this. We continue to hear that what he is not willing to do, not put ground troops in. He can't even bring himself to say who this enemy is and define them, which it violates everything that Sun Tzu presented in The Art of War, that you must know your enemy and you must know yourself.
Well, if you're in charge of these operations, what would you tell the president the advice should be to win this war against Islamic extremism?
Well, first of all, you have to diplomatically use force against those states that are sponsoring these non-state, non-uniform belligerents. I think when you look at Qatar, when you look at Turkey, when you look at Iran, and to some extent Saudi Arabia, you have to cut them off diplomatically. You have to cut their financial resources off as well. And most importantly, you have to be able to defeat this theocratic, political, totalitarian ideology by admitting what it is and use your informational resources, your media, and other means by which you defeat that which is fueling it. And if you can't bring yourself to admit what it is, as we saw this week after this Countering Violent Extremism Summit, then you're not going to be successful in the first place.
You're absolutely right. Colonel West, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kimberly.